Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Blind Press YouTube channel, and it is a nighttime version of the coffee stream because earlier today I was in ridiculous amounts of pain and I could not get down to my office. So I was not able to stream earlier. Um, but thankfully, the pain has eased somewhat, and I've taken some nighttime leave, and so I should be good. And I also, while I was laid up on the couch, uh, decided to watch Question Period today. And oh boy, did it make me mad. And oh boy, did I say I cannot let this go. I cannot leave this uncovered. And if I wait till Friday, well, the other stuff may have happened. So we're gonna take a look at what happened in Question Period today, in the House of Commons in good old Canada. And that's pretty much all we're gonna do this evening, because there's a good chunk of it, a good 20 minutes to half an hour, I believe, that we're gonna be going through. So it is gonna take, probably about an hour, because I'll be pausing and all that. And so what else is, oh yes, our illustrious premier, Doug Ford, also announced today that schools will remain closed until the fall, which honestly, um, I as much as I want my son to get back to school, I think for consistency's sake, it's just better to finish out the year as we are and just start fresh in the fall when we get, everything back to normal, as close to back to normal as we can. Um, so yeah, that announcement came down just before Question Period actually went live. So that was, I was basically watching political stuff all afternoon. Um, so I've got the Question Period queued up here to the first spot. There is a part that I'm gonna skip um, in the middle, because there's kind of a break between the questions that I want to cover. But I've got it queued up for the first bit here. And we're going to get that shared over here on the Chrome. And, let me quickly just share this. Out again. There we go. All right. Did that send? Yes, it did. Okay. Close Twitter. Back to YouTube. Open that back up. Am I still on live chat? Yes, I am. Perfect. Okay. So here we are. The MPs have just finished making their opening declarative statements. And here we are. The leader of the opposition, Aaron O'Toole, is about to start asking some questions. Now, if you were watching on Monday, we talked about the fact that there was a recent mass grave discovered in BC at a residential school. And today's question period is going to go between, or what I'm going to show you is going to go in between the residential school issue and the public health agency lab in Manitoba that had the two Chinese scientists that were connected with the Chinese military. So we're going to go back and forth between those two subjects on this question period, and Trudeau is just going to get roasted. It's going to be, yeah. Let's go, shall we?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question orale, oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, we don't think of Canada as a country with mass grave sites. And because we don't, this week has changed us all. But we were warned they were there.
Yep.
Children disappeared from families without any closure of what happened to them. Will the government commit to urgent action on calls to action 71 to 76 from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report so that these families can have some closure?
Now, to those of you who are going, what the fuck is the Truth and Reconciliation report? I cannot remember how long ago, but there was a commission set up that specifically deals with investigating the wrongs done the Native communities in Canada, such as there is a lot of Indigenous kids that go missing, like a lot. Same with women. There are a lot of women that are Native that just vanish. And there was a report done up, I believe, just before Trudeau took office, and there were 96, I believe, 94 or 96 calls to action that they put forth. And you'll hear repeated over and over that from Trudeau that he recognized all of them. He says over and over again. But this is what the opposition is referring to when they say the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Hello, Grillin' Pirate Pete. So still in Zoom interviews, no public meetings yet. Ugh. Yep. Residential school issue, the one started by Trudeau. Oh, no. This goes way before Trudeau's father. This residential schools in Canada were started, I believe, just around the turn of the century. Trudeau, there were schools still open while Trudeau Sr. was in power. I believe the last school closed in the 90s, if you believe it. This particular school where the bodies were discovered, I believe, closed in 78. So it was open during Trudeau Sr.'s tenure as Prime Minister. But yeah, the overall residential schools have been a problem for in Canada for about 100 years.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. We have fully accepted all the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which includes working with Indigenous communities to locate their missing loved ones and their unmarked burial places in a culturally informed way.
Their unmarked burial places. That's how you're gonna sugarcoat that shit? Their unmarked burial. You mean the mass graves? Just say it. Just say it. The mass graves. It is not a nice thing to have to admit, but if we want to freaking change what's going on here. We need to get real and call it what it is. Unmarked burial places. Fuck you.
In 2019, we invested $33.8 million in this work and have been engaging with Indigenous communities impacted by residential schools on how best to proceed. We will continue to move forward, recognize the horror and the tragedy of the past, and fix the wrongs of the present in partnership with Indigenous peoples.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister in 2015 said he would move on all calls to action. This morning, the minister re-announced funding that was 2 years old. No new plan, no new resources, no sense of urgency. This week, Mr. Speaker, has changed the country. Canadians need to know that it has also changed the urgency with this government. Again, will the Prime Minister commit to announcing a plan to deliver on calls to action 71 to 76 dealing with missing children from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report by Canada Day?
Now, I like how O'Toole worded that here. He's giving Trudeau is going all in here. We've accepted all of the calls to action. And O'Toole's just like, can you give us 4? Can you give us 71 to 76 by Canada Day? Can you do that? Can you at least do that? And Trudeau is just blatantly, we've accepted all of the calls to action and we're working with Indigenous peoples. And I wish I could find that clip. I actually tried, but I couldn't get the right wording to find the short clip. There's a clip where there's I think it's like a group of chiefs that went to speak to him about the mercury in the water on more than one reservation. And all he can say to them is, like, thank you for your question. Thank you for coming here to ask that question. And that's it. That's all he says to them. But he's working with the Indigenous people, you guys. He's totally working in partnership with the Indigenous peoples of Canada.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, we have been and we will continue to be. From 2015 onwards, we have taken this extraordinarily seriously and worked with the partners in Indigenous communities across the country on the important work of reconciliation. We accepted all the TRC recommendations and calls to action, and we have been moving forward on them. We will continue to do that. We recognize the fresh urgency that non-Indigenous Canadians are feeling because they are seeing this tragedy, which unfortunately is horrific and is terrible, but is not a tremendous surprise to many Indigenous families who've known this reality for far too long.
Really? Did you have to do, like, you're gonna be like, well, you if you stupid white people hadn't kept your heads in the sands, but like, that's basically what he just said. He's shifting the blame off of all of the governments, basically from Confederation onwards, onto the people. It's subtle, but that's what he just did. Let's see. I guess. Oh yeah, the 60s switch. Yeah, that was Trudeau's father, Pete. You're right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, what is not a tremendous surprise to families, Indigenous communities, and many Canadians is that we hear nothing but talk in Ottawa, including from this Prime Minister who 6 years ago said he would move on all plans, Mr. Speaker. These children, the families, the communities deserve a precise and clear roadmap with funding and timelines to deliver on 71 to 76 calls to action dealing with these sites. If we're really going to embrace the country that is Canada, the Prime Minister needs to announce this before Canada Day.
Now you'll notice here that O'Toole is being very specific. He's saying the Prime Minister, like meaning the office. He's saying there's a lot of talk in Ottawa, meaning from everyone in Parliament. Okay? He's being very specific here not to use partisan language. Okay? Notice that. And notice the response.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, since 2019, we have been working on this issue with Indigenous communities, with Indigenous leadership, to make sure we're moving forward in a culturally appropriate, trauma-informed way. We understand that there is new urgency and pressures to move on this, and we will continue to invest as much as is necessary to support communities on that path forward. But I will not take lessons from Conservatives on this. They were the ones that refused to give any money at all on this issue, refused $1.5 million to help with this. We have been there, and we will continue.
The Honourable.
They cut his mic! I didn't realize they cut his mic. But did you see that? I will not take lessons from Conservatives. Like, O'Toole is, like, you can hear it, and I haven't been really fond of O'Toole for the past few months. Okay? But you can hear in his voice that he's genuinely upset about this, and he doesn't, like, he wants everybody in that House of Commons to come together and start fixing the problems that are going on for the Native communities. Like, actually doing concrete things to fix them. And this is what Trudeau has, is, oh, well, I won't take lessons from the Conservatives. Like, really, dude? This is now, right now is when you're gonna do this? And honey, what were you asking? Come back here and tell me what you were asking. Oh, okay.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, through you, with respect to the Prime Minister, we all need to take lessons from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report. Hear, hear. The recommendations which 6 years ago the Prime Minister said he would act and deliver on, we have collectively not done that. I wrote to him on moving forward on C8, and I appreciate the effort to move that forward. But we need to show urgency now to give closure to these families and to Indigenous communities. It is not the time for political rhetoric in Ottawa. It's time to come together with a plan. Will the Prime Minister commit to delivering that plan to Canadians ahead of Canada Day?
And so you'll see that he's, like, Trudeau's trying to piss him off, right? He's trying to get O'Toole to sink to his level, and O'Toole is not having it. And that's, it sucks. Like, this is how you have to reprimand each other in the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, with respect through you, you know. But that's how you call somebody out in the House of Commons. So let's, but yeah, and then here we have Trudeau's excellent response, I say, with every ounce of sarcasm I can muster.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a government, we will continue to move forward on this reconciliation journey in partnership with Indigenous peoples. And that means, yes, moving forward on C8, and I appreciate the Leader of the Opposition's support on that, but it also means moving forward on the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which is still problematic for the Conservative Party. It means continuing to move forward on ending boil water advisories, which we are working hard on and will continue to. It means continue to respect Indigenous languages and Indigenous culture and fight systemic racism right across the country, and do it at all orders of government.
Like, listen to how... Okay, have you do you notice that when Trudeau gets angry, first he speaks very slowly and very quietly. And then he starts talking much faster and much louder and starts gasping all the time while he's talking. And then he stops dramatically. It's like, dude, you're not teaching drama anymore. Also, you haven't done shit to end boil water advisories anywhere in Canada. Stop lying. Like, bold-faced lying.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président.
Okay, they're repeating this question in French, so
Mr.
I'm
Speaker,
going
this
to
morning, the Minister
skip.
of Conciliation had invested 33 with
Where am I?
go,
Yeah, they're repeating the
then
questions
yes,
in French.
which will ensure the light of hope once and for all.
And
After
this is about Air Canada, which is not something I wanted to show you.
to get through this.
And now we're
The
back
honourable
to the
member for
residential
Burnaby
schools.
South.
The discovery of 215 Indigenous children at a former residential school
I
has
believe
shocked
this is
the nation.
Jagmeet Singh.
It's another example of clear proof of the
could be
genocidal
wrong, though.
actions of Canada. But it's a moment where we need to move beyond condolences to clear action. How can this Prime Minister take reconciliation seriously when he is sending his lawyers to fight Indigenous kids in court? In fact, the next date is in 2 weeks. So my question directly to the Prime Minister, will he call off his lawyers? Will he stop fighting Indigenous kids in court?
Which is actually absolutely what he's doing. There are several court cases involving Indigenous children, survivors of residential schools. It's insane. And he does the same thing to veterans, by the way. There are veterans fighting in court for their benefits. There are veterans fighting in court for proper health care, proper mental health services. He's doing the same thing to veterans. It's absolutely disgusting. Hello, Costin. And here is Mr. Trudeau's response.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as we've said many, many times, every single survivor deserves compensation. That is something this government is committed to, and we are working with communities, with families, with Indigenous leadership to move forward on the right way to get that support to them.
Is that why you listen to hereditary chiefs over elected chiefs? You know, like in the case of the pipeline, where something like 75 to 80% of the Indigenous communities along that pipeline wanted the pipeline, and like 15 to 20% of didn't, and the government was like, okay, you guys don't want the pipeline. Is that what you mean by you listen to, you work with leadership?
And we also understand that on top of just compensation and supports, we need to end the problem. We need to create institutions and supports and culturally informed ways of moving forward to support these kids now and into the future.
Thank you for your question. What?
They create institutions and they call them residential schools?
They did.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
La découverte.
Oh, yeah, and they're repeating this,
Discovery of
so let me
215 Indigenous
skip this because this translator is absolutely
shadow of a doubt that we
really
should
yeah. Where are we here?
the lives of these children.
Government has failed.
Wellington, Halton Hills.
Okay, this is another great
Mr.
one.
Speaker, it's clear
So now
the
we're
government
moving
has failed to
to-
protect national security. It granted a scientist from
Sorry.
China's military, Fei Yuyan of the People's Liberation
Where am I
Army,
here?
access to its Level 4 Winnipeg lab.
Okay, I need to put this back a minute. Okay, so we're moving on to.
Pause.
I did.
This is Michael Chong, by the way.
Yes. Okay. So this guy is so he's a conservative member of parliament. His name is Michael Chong, as Pincalo just said. Thank you for that. And we are moving on to discuss the national security issue of the two Chinese scientists that were working in the microbiology lab in Manitoba. So here are these set of questions, and this is where Trudeau really starts to get nailed to the cross here.
Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear the government has failed to protect national security. It granted a scientist from China's military, Fei Yuyan of the People's Liberation Army, access to its Level 4 Winnipeg lab, where the world's most dangerous viruses and pathogens are handled. How did this individual get access to the lab, and will the Prime Minister ensure that no scientist from China's military is granted access again in the future?
So this is coming from a guy who is quite obviously, this is not an idle question, and it's a valid question. Why are we letting anybody, like even an American, even an ally, we really shouldn't be doing stuff like that. So why are we letting somebody from communist China into that kind of clearance?
Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we take very seriously the responsibilities around national security, which is why we work very closely with national security organizations like CSIS and the Communication Security Establishment to ensure that people are protected and that people who have the proper security clearances are the right people indeed. I cannot comment specifically on these individuals in question, but I can assure you that every step of the way this government has and always will take national security with utmost importance.
You can't comment on the two people who lost their jobs and got marched out of there by the frickin' RCMP. But you take national security very seriously. Okay.
Honorable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the government has failed to comply with 2 orders from committee asking for the production of documents related to this matter. Orders that he himself supported while he was in opposition that he now opposes. The Prime Minister is accountable to this House. He came to office promising greater democratic oversight, promising open and accountable government. When will he respect this House and its committees and deliver the documents we are asking for related to these national security breaches at the Winnipeg lab?
And he's right. Trudeau did run in his first election, ran very heavily on the promise of electoral reform, more democratic oversight, more accountability to the people for government. Listening to the different commissions and committees that are in place. And he's done none of that. The only thing Trudeau has done in his 6 years in office is legalize pot. That's it. That's it. That's all he did.
Right, Honorable Prime Minister.
I find that a little rich, Mr. Speaker, coming from a member of the former government that refused to bring in national security oversight with a committee of parliamentarians, which is exactly what we did. That wasn't there when I was in opposition under a conservative government. That's why we brought in the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians that has the security clearances, that is able to look into issues of the highest delicacy, of the highest national security. There are two outstanding members on that committee from the Conservative Party, and we certainly hope that all parliamentarians will be able to look into these matters.
Notice how he's now kissing conservative ass. Do you see the switch that he just made in that one speech? No, he's not. Yeah, he is. There are two outstanding members from the Conservative Party on that committee. For him to go back to, that's all he can do is, oh, well, the conservatives. Oh, well, when I was in opposition, we didn't have that. That's why we made, what, you made it so you could ignore it? Like, good for you. You put in place a commission. Or a committee. Why are you not listening to it? You can't brag about how good it is and how much it gets done when you are hampering it. Look at the thing I made and look at me wreck it. Yay, me. Aren't I doing a good job?
The honourable member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the National Security and Intelligence Committee is accountable to the Prime Minister, not the other way around. He appoints the members of that committee and they serve at his pleasure. He can block information to the committee, block its reports. When will the Prime Minister be accountable to this House and deliver the documents that we have been asking for? And when will he commit to cooperate with the U.S. investigation about the origins of the coronavirus that President Biden has ordered last week and ensure that government scientists in Winnipeg and their documents, including lab notes, are made available to U.S. investigators?
Yeah, because now, Biden has opened an investigation. So, is he going to give the U.S. a whole bunch of documents with black ink on them? Or is he going to, what would be interesting is if he gave the U.S. the full documents and refused to give his own countrymen the full documents. And you know what? That wouldn't surprise me at all. That wouldn't surprise me at all if he did that.
We can all agree that national security issues should be dealt with by parliamentarians through the appropriate venue. This is exactly the kind of thing that the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians was created for. They should examine these issues. We created NSI-COP to allow for proper scrutiny of national security issues by parliamentarians from all parties. In regards to the Biden government's announcement on investigations, we will, of course, completely support them. It's important to get the truth of the matter.
The honourable member for Lower Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, we all recognize on this side of the House that asking questions about communist China and the
I know this woman is gonna sound really horrible and robotic, but this question is important. This is not a rehash question in French. This is a brand new question, and it's actually really funny that that Trudeau has asked this question. Please bear with the translator. It just, yeah.
The honourable member for Lower Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, we all recognize on this side of the House that asking questions about communist China and the pandemic is quite unfortunate, but it is essential. When we asked questions to the Prime Minister last week on this, the Prime Minister called us racist. It's beneath a Prime Minister to act like that. The next day, the President of the United States launched an investigation by his intelligence services into the origins of the pandemic, and he said, and I quote, as part of that report, I have asked for areas of further inquiry that may be required, including specific questions for China. Does the Prime Minister believe that the President is racist for asking questions about China? Is Biden a racist?
Okay, so yeah, and this is what happened. I covered this in an article last week, that Trudeau did actually accuse Conservatives and Bloc Québécois MPs of being racist for asking questions about the origins of the virus. And the next day was when Biden announced his investigation. So for this MP to be asking this question is actually a great question. It's actually pretty funny. But unfortunately, we have to deal with this woman's delivery, which kind of takes the punch out of it.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we have asked for better answers from the international community and from China on the origins of this pandemic. We are working with our allies. We are working with the United States. We will continue to demand that the World Health Organization continues to investigate further to really understand what has happened, who is responsible, and how we can, above all, prevent this from happening in the future. We will always be there to ask those difficult questions. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. That's interesting, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister responds to difficult questions, but essential ones concerned what happened at the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg. A researcher with ties to the Chinese military and worked in the lab. Deadly viruses were sent from Winnipeg to Wuhan in communist China. After this shipment, 2 researchers who worked in Winnipeg were escorted out of the lab by the RCMP. Is the Prime Minister prepared to get to the bottom of the issue?
No.
It's essential for our national safety, security. Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as we've already said, these 2 individuals are no longer working at the Public Health Agency of Canada. We cannot make a comment due to privacy concerns. And
due to privacy concern, whose privacy? Theirs? That's like saying we'd like to ask you questions about the person. We'd like to get more information on this person who committed homicide who used to work for you. Oh, well, I can't comment on that because they don't work for me anymore. Oh, well, they committed homicide while they were working for you, so we'd like to get some information on. Oh, well, they don't work for me anymore, so I can't comment on them. But it's like, well, what? That makes no sense. They obviously required police escort out of the building. Why? Why did they require police escort out of the building? What did they steal? What did they do? Why are you not talking?
our obligations, but parliamentarians must be able to do a follow-up and ask questions, even on questions that are quite sensitive when it comes to national security. That is why we created a special committee of parliamentarians that will have and has the ability to look at all of the elements, including the most sensitive issues. I recommend the member use that committee of parliamentarians in order to do a follow-up. That is what it's for. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. It's interesting to see that the Prime Minister is saying we can't talk about it because the two individuals lost their jobs in Winnipeg, but that's why, Mr. Speaker, we're asking the questions. We want to know why these people were escorted out by the RCMP when they left. Mr. Speaker, these are sensitive but essential questions. Once again, can the Prime Minister at least commit to, in the future, no one with any ties to the Communist Party or the Chinese military will have the level 4 security clearance? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We are all in agreement to say that parliamentarians should be able to debate issues of national security where it is appropriate to do so. That is exactly why the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, the NSI COP, was created. It should be able to look at this issue.
What? Listen to him. He's just... It's not my problem. It's not my problem. It's not my problem. Talk to the NSI cop. It's not my problem. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was before, Pete. It's just... This is, like, he's so slimy. He is so slimy. And it's just... Ugh. Like, and the way that all of the members of parliament, like the Bloc, the NDP, the Conservatives, they're going after, they're not letting it go. And I like that. I do like that.
We have created the committee so parliamentarians from all parties can examine issues of national security, including two excellent members of the Conservative Party of Canada who are doing important work on that committee. Thank you. The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, everybody in Quebec was disgusted to learn that the gluttons
more
in
Air Canada
gave
stuff.
themselves
Hold
$20
on.
million in bonuses while the company taxpayers
There's more.
officials. That was
There's
unacceptable.
one more segment
Knowing
that you guys should see before we
of-
stop this.
to all our way
Oh, thank God.
for Canada to explain itself.
Committee received more.
Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Here we go.
Today, the Canada-China Committee received more illegally redacted documents from this government. They also got a letter from the President of the Public Health Agency of Canada that included the government talking points. Canadians don't want talking points. They deserve answers. Why are they getting more black ink and more whiteout from this government?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we can all agree that parliamentarians deserve to be able to look into all sorts of different facets of what the government does, including and particularly around issues of national security. When I was in opposition, Mr. Speaker, we weren't able to do that because the Conservative government had a secretive approach that refused any sort of oversight, which is why we brought in the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians that would allow parliamentarians...
Like, listen to him. He's a broken goddamn record. We can all agree that parliamentarians deserve to debate everything. Blah, 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 blah. I couldn't do this when I was in opposition because the Conservatives were meanie heads. Blah, 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 blah.
From all parties to get the kinds of clearances involved to be able to follow up. That is the right venue for that level of transparency, and we hope that parliamentarians will use it.
Yes, because transparency should not extend to the House of Commons, God forbid. We should only have transparency behind closed doors. That is what he just said. That is literally what he just said. We should only have transparency behind closed doors where it's not transparent anymore because it's behind closed doors.
Well, member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Canadians send us here to get accountability from the government, and the Prime Minister is very careful in his words. That's a committee of parliamentarians, not a committee of Parliament. A committee of Parliament has legally ordered those documents that this government even saw fit to redact the lines for the media that were included in the package today. That's how far these Liberals will go to hide the truth from Canadians. So is the Prime Minister going to be voting today for the motion to have the documents handed over to the committee, or is he going to continue his cover-up?
Yeah, they gave the Committee of Parliament the media redaction the documents for the media, basically. And was like, here you go. Yeah, repeat and repeat. Hope someone believes him. Exactly, Ghost Dog. Because the MP almost hinted that something was sent from Winnipeg to Wuhan and then COVID was released. Yes, he did. He definitely did hint that.
Right Honorable Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, these issues have come up. They came up many times when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, because on issues of national security, there was very little accountability, there was no oversight, there was no transparency. So we created a National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, on which seat members from all different parties who are given security clearances so that they can look into the most sensitive issues around national security. And they have done extraordinary jobs and put out many important reports. And that is exactly the way for all parties to get accountability and insight.
The Honorable Member for
They cut his mic again.
Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
It doesn't sound like openness by default, like this government promised us. It sounds like the Prime Minister should be charging Stephen Harper rent for living inside his head for the last 6 years. The documents show that this government...
I'm gonna play that again. Yeah, you're probably right, honey. His mic is probably doing that. But I'm gonna play that little bit again, because it's brilliant.
The Honourable Member for Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
It doesn't sound like openness by default, like this government promised us. It sounds like the Prime Minister should be charging Stephen Harper rent for living inside his head for the last 6 years. The documents show that this government refuses to answer very simple questions. We know that Dr. Fei Hu Yan was a Chinese national associated with the Chinese military. We know the students that were escorted from the lab were also reported to be Chinese nationals. Why is it that the passport of the two scientists that were walked out all of a sudden a national security concern?
Yeah, they were students. There were students that were in that lab that were Chinese nationals that are reported to have ties. And then the doctor had ties. There were two scientists that had ties that were like actually doctors, and then there were some students. And now the passports of the two scientists are of national security concern, and nobody and Trudeau's government's like, oh well, talk to the committee, but we're not going to give them everything, so it doesn't really matter. You know, it's so, and then he keeps bragging about how he made this committee, how his government made this committee. It doesn't matter. They're accountable to you, and you can give them whatever you want.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we all understand that there are certain elements that confirm that are of a level of national security interest, and governments deal with those around the world all the time. What Canada has finally done since 2015 is equip itself with the same kinds of oversight by elected parliamentarians that other countries have long had. We looked at the ways that the UK and the US and others handle sensitive national security issues, and we created a national security committee of parliamentarians to do just that. That is the oversight that we have provided.
Now, you'll notice he made a boo-boo here, and this guy from Leeds and Rideau Lakes is going to educate our learned Prime Minister. Here we go.
The Honourable Member for Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Again, Speaker, allow me to educate the Prime Minister. The UK uses a committee of Parliament, not a committee made up of parliamentarians that reports only to the Prime Minister. Let me offer a quote from the Chief of Special Pathogens at the lab in Winnipeg. Quote, historically, it's also been easier to obtain material from us as opposed to US labs. Well, don't worry. He's only talking about why China would ask Canada for the Ebola virus. This government's approach to China from the beginning has been incredibly naive. Is all that black ink just covering up this government's biggest national security failure?
Yeah, for China, like for the head of the pathogens lab to say that's terrifying. It's easier for China to go through us because we'll just give them stuff like Ebola. Jesus Christ.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, issues of national security are of utmost importance to all Canadians, and that's why they elect parliamentarians to hold governments to account. But on the issues of national security, it is important.
No, they elect members of parliament to hold. What? They don't elect. They don't elect parliamentarians. They elect members. Oh my God. You don't even know your own politics.
That there be higher levels of clearance given to parliamentarians who can properly dig into it and ask all the right questions. That is why we move forward on creating a national security committee of parliamentarians so that they can do the excellent work that they have been doing over the past many years, including with outstanding representation from the Conservative Party of Canada on that committee.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
Today, the United Nations is calling for investigations into the deaths of Indigenous students at residential schools. Maybe because the United Nations doesn't have confidence in this government because of their lack of action. In over 6 years of being in government, this Prime Minister has only implemented a fraction of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action. Maybe if this Prime Minister wasn't so busy fighting Indigenous kids in court and fighting Indigenous survivors of residential schools, he would have more time to fight, more time to implement the calls to action. When will the Prime Minister implement all 94 calls to action?
94 calls to action.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when we came into office, we accepted all the recommendations, all the calls to action by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and we have been working on moving forward on all of them, recognizing that a number of them are provincial's area of jurisdiction.
Oh, you piece of garbage. Wow. You utter piece of trash.
One of them is for the Vatican to do, but we have been moving forward in a strong way in partnership with Indigenous peoples on getting these things done. It obviously takes time. I am impatient. Indigenous communities are impatient, but we are working together to get them done right, and we will continue to. Canada needs to recognize the past. We need to act now to protect the future.
Again, I'm going to repeat what you said to the group of chiefs that came to talk to you about the mercury in their water. Thank you for your question. That's how impatient you are, Mr. Prime Minister. You're so impatient to fix the problems that when people came to you, I think it was a year and a half into your office? In your first tenure, your first term? And they were like, hey, you've been in office for about a year and a half now, and there's still mercury in our water. And all you could say was, thank you for your question. That's how patient or impatient you are to fix the problems, Mr. Prime Minister. You are disgusting.
The member for Burnaby South.
6 years and a fraction of the calls to action being done is not moving forward in a strong way. There's been 2 years since the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Inquiry recommended calls for justice, put forward calls for justice. And the plan, there is no national plan to implement those. It's so bad that the Native Women's Association of Canada says we're going to have to come up with our own plan because they've cited that the Liberal government's approach has been toxic and dysfunctional. How can the Prime Minister claim to take reconciliation seriously when he continues to fail Indigenous women and girls?
I love how only one person claps for. I think is that Jagmeet Singh, member for Burnaby South. Is that Singh? So yeah, here's what here's true. Yep.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when we took office in 2015...
Yes, this might actually redeem Jagmeet Singh and the NDP.
It might, yeah.
Because the most interesting part about this is there goes their coalition. Because, yeah, no, this is bullshit. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, the hundreds and hundreds of Native videos from the reserves and shit that have been popping up on Native TikTok. speaks billions of words over what Trudeau's saying.
Yeah. Pinkolo's not wrong. At all.
We launched the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls after many years of inaction by all different stripes of government. This is something
that video's in your DMs now.
Okay, thanks.
That we've been committed to and something we continue to work with as we stand with survivors and families of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, and LGBTQIA people. In response to the first ever national public inquiry into this ongoing tragedy, we're working with provinces, territories, and Indigenous leaders, survivors, and families to ensure that Indigenous women, girls are safe. We will continue to do that work in partnership with them.
What partnership? What partnership have you been showing, sir? Where?
2021. And yet...
Okay, so this is... That's the... You know, right now we're going to... There's some woman who's going to claim that conservatives want abortion to be banned. That's... I'm not going to bother with that. But Pinkolo found the... clip that I was talking about, so I'm going to pull it up for you guys so I can show you just how impatient Justin Trudeau is to fix some of the problems that are being faced by the Indigenous people of in Canada. So we're going to take I'm going to just quickly pull this up here and we'll take a quick look at it. Where are we here? That's it. There we go. Okay. Load, damn you. Hey, Chrome faster. Okay. I am going to get to the play button, and then I'm going to go and share this clip. All right. Okay, back to StreamYard. And tab. All right. So, yeah, this is called Indigenous Protester Interrupts Trudeau Event. All right, here we go. It's a minute and a half clip. So here we go.
And we came forward with a different approach. An approach that said the way to grow a strong economy in the 21st century is by making sure that everyone has a real and fair chance to succeed. That we invest in the middle class and in people working hard to join it. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you.
People in grassy narrows are suffering from mercury poisoning.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much for your donation tonight. I really appreciate the donation to the Liberal Party of Canada. And as we know, the Liberal Party is filled with different perspectives and different opinions, and we respect them all, and our commitment to reconciliation continues to be strong and committed, and we will continue to engage. Thank you, sir, for your donation to the Liberal Party of Canada. I really appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you for being here. That is why we are moving forward on reconciliation in a real and tangible way. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for highlighting how important reconciliation is. Thank you for being here tonight, sir. Thank you very much for your donation to the Liberal Party. So, as I was saying,
That's how impatient he is to fix the problems that are being faced by Indigenous people. That's what he thinks of Indigenous people. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for highlighting why we need to move forward on truth. Thank you for being token natives. And thank you for your donation to my party, is basically what he just said. That is how impatient our Prime Minister is to fix the divide between Native and non-Native Canadians and fix the problems that are going on. Oh, he was laughing. Pincolo just said he was laughing the first time he said it. He was laughing. Thank you for your donation to the Liberal Party of Canada. Like, that's how impatient he is. This is why whenever he says that Native Canadian, that he's working with Indigenous Canadians, that's why people with half a brain kind of get punchy, because those of us who actually know about that clip, and the fact that nothing has been done since he's become a prime minister, look at him, especially in question period today, and just, if he were Pinocchio, he'd be walking on his nose. I don't know how else to put it. I really don't. I know politicians are full of shit, but goddamn. Like, does he have to set the bar so high for just being a shitty person? Like, that is the leader of our country. And the scary thing is that if we were to go to an election right now, he would win a majority. That's the scary part. That's why people that like Pierre Poilievre are so important. That's why I have decided to start highlighting more and more Canadian politics on the channel, because it first of all, more Canadians need to know about it, and second of all, the rest of the world needs to know that there are some Canadians that do know about it and actually give a shit and want it to stop. That not all of us are a bunch of morons who just are complacent and uneducated about what's going on. It's enraging. And and that has taken me, look at that. It took me to an hour. That's awesome. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. I was worried that I wasn't going to have a full hour of material, but sweet. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. I do apologize for it being late. I know you guys aren't used to this, and there's other people streaming. But I didn't want to let this go by, because there would be tomorrow's question period, and who knows what'll happen then. So I really wanted to cover this while it was still fresh. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I hope you guys will come by Twitch tomorrow at 2 p.m. for another Beat the Blind Girl stream. I'm now a Twitch affiliate, and I've got my commands and stuff set up so There's timers and stuff. You can get points, like channel points and stuff for subscribing and following and all this fun stuff. And I've put some games in the chat too, like an 8-ball game and all that fun stuff. So come by for Beat the Blind Girl tomorrow. I made it to champion rank on Tuesday. And I think demigod is next, and I've never gotten to champion, let alone demigod. So we'll see how far I get tomorrow. And so thank you for watching. Come back on Friday also for the coffee stream again at noon, and I will be on Minions tomorrow. My back was the reason I was not there last night. But I will be there tomorrow night. Thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you on Twitch tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. Thank you. Bye.